All right, welcome everyone. So I'm gonna claim that you can read Korean in 10 minutes. Disclaimer is that the actual presentation will run a little longer than 10 minutes because I will be sharing some fun history, but the SLA promise you can still learn to read Korean in 10 minutes will still hold true. It's not. It's kind of a rare that you get to do that with any language. So time is ticking. Let's go. Let's start with defining what we are talking about. What is Korean? Korean relates to anything that comes from the country of Korea. Currently, there are two: North Korea and South Korea. Anything relating to its people, language, or culture. So today, when it comes to the language, we can also distinguish the Korean by the spoken language and the written language. Today, we're going to focus on the written language. What is Korea, you might ask? I'm sure everybody knows, but just to give you a little more context, it's the two countries you see over here, North Korea and South Korea, both famous and infamous for many different things. It's located between China and Japan. And did you know that Korea is also touching border with Russia here? The division of Korea happened between World War II and Korean War around 1948 for the same reason that Germany and Vietnam were split into two during the Cold War. It was one of the Iron Curtain location. Will reunification happen one day? I don't know, but that will relieve a lot of brink of war tension in this part of the world. But that's outside the scope of this talk. Going back to the history, Korea traces its history as far back as the nation established in 2000 BC. And the name Korea comes from a medieval Korean kingdom named Goryeo that was spread to the Europeans through the Arabian merchants. The Koreans themselves, we call our country Hangul, but Korea is certainly the old kingdom's name. Now, wait, at this point, you might say, wait, Hanbin, like, is this like talk relevant to engineering at all? This isn't the usual technical talk, but we engineers, appreciate the features of many different languages. It's not only something that we do by profession, but I think it's something that we grow to love by just exploring the different features that the language gives and growing our intuition on when is a language effective solution given the situation. Like programming languages, Korean's origin is clearly known when and why it was invented. This is pretty rare in regular writing systems, I'd say. So now that I've covered the business justification of this talk to the well-intentioned skeptics, let's continue. Back to the history. So Korea and Japan and Vietnam as well were heavily influenced by the Chinese culture over thousands of years. It is like the China was like the Roman Empire of East Asia for much of the history. So a lot of transmission of technology, cultural practices, philosophies like spread to Korea and Japan over thousands of years. We celebrate Lunar New Year as well. But like many European countries, Korea, Japan, and Vietnam still retain their distinct languages and cultures. For example, the Chinese might say hello, like ni hao, and Koreans say 안녕하세요, and Japanese say konnichiwa, and they all have their own scripts as well. That sets the basis for the talk. Let's get a little sample of how Korean, Japanese, and Chinese might be same but different. I'll play it and let me know if you guys cannot hear it, but you should be.
두부,
豆腐,
tofu,
tofu,
政府,
政府,
정부,
政府.
So you can sort of see the shared DNA there, but not quite the same form. That is similar to how Spanish and English and French might be similar because they share the same Latin and Greek root, but are still different.
Yeah.
Vino.
Wine.
What?
Wine.
No.
I mean vin. Sorry, vin. Of course, French.
So yeah.
Hola.
So Korea used the Chinese vocabulary and writing system for much of its history, as if one of the Romance language countries would have used Latin for official documents. Japan still heavily relies on Chinese writing system for their everyday documents, but Korean has moved on to their phonetic system. If you look at one of the medieval print that was produced in Korea back in the day, it was completely in the Chinese characters. Even today, while the modern Koreans have moved on to using just the phonetic scripts, we still use the Chinese characters in our dictionaries to disambiguate words that sound the same but mean different things. It's still, so studying studying Chinese as a Korean person, it would be like studying Latin as an English-speaking person. You don't need to learn it to get by every day, but it does open your eyes into etymology of a lot of things. Beyond just the vocabulary, the grammatical structure of Korean and Chinese are pretty different. Japanese and Korean share some similar roots. So the Korean writing system, Hangul, was born from a king's concern. Meet the King Sejong of the Joseon dynasty. So what was his royal concern? Well, only the privileged caste could read and write. So Korea had a pretty strict caste system where it was divided, I think about like 4 castes, and only the top 2 like elite castes had the birthright for education, and the commoners had no access to formal education. Adding to that, the writing system that we were using was done in Chinese, rather than that reflecting our spoken language. So you see, as a commoner, which represents most of the Koreans at the time, there's a class barrier, and there's also a language barrier to becoming literate. And this saddened the king. So it's like the barriers to literacy that happened in the medieval Europe. If you became priests or one of the privileged class, then the door to education was open to you. If you were in most of the part of most of the commoners, then you were lucky if you were literate. And in addition to that, since much of the official documents were done in Latin or Greek for classic texts, like one of the main achievements of Martin Luther was that he translated the Bible from Greek to German, which increases accessibility for the people, commoners of Germany, who may not be familiar with Latin or Greek. So we see this, we saw this class barrier and language barrier of a commoner to becoming literate was a phenomenon we were seeing around the world. And so Korea was not an exception. But I will show you the Korea's way of responding to that. So King Sejong hosted a compassionate hackathon. He recruited the brightest minds of the dynasty together. And he set out 2 simple requirements. Hangul must represent the spoken language of the Korean Peninsula, and it must be easy to learn because the target user are not educated people and they need to pick up quickly. So this is the declaration of Hangul written, you can still see some Chinese characters here, but this is the early prototype of Korean writing system. It is significant because it proclaims the purpose of Korean language. I will share the translation with you guys. The language of our people is different from that of the nation of China, and thus it cannot be expressed by the written language of Chinese people. Because of this reason, the cries of illiterate peasants are not properly understood by the many in the position of privilege. So people can, like if you are government officials and only the privileged people could submit petitions, then you can understand why there's a gap. I feel the plight of the peasants and the difficulties faced by the public servants, and am saddened by the situation. Therefore, 28 written characters have been newly created. My desire is such that each Korean person may become familiar with the newly created written language of Korean and use them daily in an intuitive way. So when this was, released, published, the many medieval Korean elites responded by, "Boo! This is pretty scarce, and there's not." Also, you could think of it. I think of it in two ways. Like, it's like if a new programming language came around, then there's not a lot of rich library written for it. So its usefulness is still kind of limited. People love Python because it has a ton of libraries, but also I'm sensing that it probably threatened them, because being able to read and write gives them so much power advantage over the commoners. And if the commoners could start wielding the same power, then their privileged status might not be the same anymore. However, a lot of commoners and also the elite women started picking up Korean, and modern Koreans today say, "He rocks, King Sejong." Thank you. We thank them. We thank him and his scholars for the convenient writing system, but more for the spirit behind it, because the purpose was to improve the quality of lives for the masses, especially in the era where the discrimination based on the class status was very strict. So this is the statue of King Sejong, placed at the heart of the capital of South Korea. Okay, enough hype, and let's learn, so that you can be the judge. So how Korean looks like. People tell me Korean looks like a lot of boxes and triangles and sticks and squares. They're right. This is Gangnam Style lyrics. It may look really complicated here. There's so many possibility here, but they're simpler than they appear. Let's note that you can at least visually make out that this is different from this. It's like each boxes represent some sort of unit. And what that unit represents is a syllable. And a syllable is fundamentally a beginning consonant, a vowel, and optionally an ending consonant. So the rule of those boxes they can be broken. They actually represent, they embody this rule. So here, the red part, I for initial, and M for middle, vowel, and F for final, the ending consonant. And these are just different forms based on how visually appealing it looks, based on combining these vowels. You can combine two vowels to make a diphthong, in I think some other languages, like German say you combine E and I, then it's not E or E, it becomes like I, like Einstein. So it's like a similar idea here. So this is the building rules, and you flesh out this syllable by borrowing a set of characters from the initial group and the middle group, where the vowels, and the ending group. And that's it. Each of these they just represent sound. So if we look at how Koreans type on their mobile keyboard, it's really simple. It actually fits in nicely to the QWERTY keyboard. We just have the left side as the consonant parts and the right side as the vowel parts. Vowels look like sticks, and the consonants have a little different shape. And we just use our thumb to go back and forth between consonant and vowel. And so simple rows, simple parts, and then you can generate lots of permutations. These are the consonant sets, and these are the vowel sets. And this doesn't even cover possible combination when you throw in ending consonants. And so there's so much more possibilities. But you can clearly see holding a vowel constant, iterating over every consonant, it still maintains a similar form. Oh, and then going across, you hold all consonant steady, and then you iterate over the list of vowels, and then it becomes just a form. So we don't have to memorize like thousands of forms. We just remember this rule and just the building blocks. So let's start practicing right away. This is definitely trying to be a crowd pleaser to CloudHealth audience today. So this is how you would write Boston, London, and Bengaluru in Korean. Now, because I had to use Korean consonant and Korean vowels, it doesn't sound exactly the same as in English, of course. So this will say pronounced like Boston, London, Bengaluru. Now I'm going to draw your attention to the similar parts in each of these. For example, if we say Boston, B is the same as should sound the same as Bengaluru, like the B in Bengaluru, and so we have the consonant representing the B sound here, and then we have the L here, the consonant that stands for the sound like it's more like very dry R, like L. So London, and then we don't really have R sound, so we still use this consonant for both L and R. So Bengaluru, London is the same consonant. And then when we say Boston, London, the vowel over there, ton and London is the same. So this sound stands for sound. So we have that vowel over here. It's a little different from Boston. So it's a different vowel here over here. And then this consonant stands for N sound. So Boston, London, you can see the parts over here. So if you just look at each of these, treat each of these as a unique character, then Korean looks really confusing. But if you have the X-ray view to say, this is a consonant, this is a vowel, then it just becomes like really simple, just combination of 28 some parts. Now, at this point, I'd like to give you a brief comparison of Hangul versus the Japanese phonetic writing system known as the kana system. I love a kana system because I think they're visually, aesthetically pleasing. The kana system was used at least since 9th century, so that predates Korea by several centuries. So they assign a unique symbol for each base syllable. What does that mean? So just like Korean, each of these represent a syllable. But if we look at here, this is the consonant and this is the vowel. And the Japanese and we would say ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, za, zi, zu, ze, zo. But you can see sort of how these don't really share same visual features. They assign each unique symbol for ka and ki, ku, ke, ko. And there are two, so that brings about like 46 base syllables, and that can, by some tricks, you can produce up to 100 distinct syllables. At this point, you might wonder, like, why are there like two sets over here? That I'm gonna dive a little bit into a deeper technical detail here. Japanese phonetic system have two representations, one called hiragana, the squiggly ones, and katakana, the kind of straight ones. And they, it's the same set, it's two sets of symbols that represent the same kind of 46 base syllables, but they're used for different purposes. Hiragana usually represents like the native Japanese words and languages, whereas katakana usually represents like onomatopoeia, sounds, or foreign loan words. So when I was like traveling in Japan, I learned a little bit of hiragana and katakana, and just simply by knowing katakana and seeing like, passporto, doa, I could like make out like, oh, there's so many English loan words here. So it helps me to become a little more literate. Even though I don't speak Japanese, I can read katakana and I know English, so I can make sense of the words. Compared to that, Hangul was invented again in 1400s. And again, it assigns a unique symbol, not at the syllable level, but for each consonant and vowel. So theoretically, 11,000 syllables are possible, but practically in 99% of the cases, about like 2,000-ish syllables cover most cases. Was there any interaction? Was Korean influenced by the Khan system? It's certainly possible since it came after several centuries, but I don't know too much about that. But it's definitely worth mentioning the difference where the unique symbol for consonant vowel versus the syllable. So now you know how to read Korean, and I think I have met my SLA barely. So it wasn't that easy. If you're still not impressed, like, well, what can I do with it? Great, you're an engineer. You're thinking about how to make use of things. So you can order like a pro at a Korean restaurant. Instead of trying to squint your eye at a small English text over here, you can just go straight for the broad Korean characters that are prioritized over here. And then just deconstruct that all these things that look different, actually it's just the consonant, vowel, and consonant, and order like a pro and impress staff. Or you could speed read Korean words that appear on the news clips. So it could be like, corona drive through, and then realize they're actually English words, drive through, and have your mind blown. Or you could watch Korean shows. I have a Mexican-American roommate, and she really likes to put on Korean shows. I'm out of loop of Korean dramas and shows, but it's sometimes kind of interesting to me when I hear like Korean words coming from the living room. If you know Hangul, maybe you could put on some Korean captions on and just practice that way. Maybe, or you could watch English shows in Korean captions. Koreans love, a lot of people in Korea do that because they love American dramas. Or you could sing along a K-pop at a karaoke night with the lyrics pulled up on your phone. So that was 2018 CloudHealth Christmas party. I really peaked then. And then, or you can take away modular design ideas based on how Korean's writing system is structured. So I think one thing that we always think about in our engineering world is like, how do we like decouple things? How do we make things modular so that we can just build like very solid, simple, basic parts and then just generate a lot of variety of combinations that suit the variety of needs. And so I think that design principle still is welcomed in both worlds here. So frequently asked questions. Do I need to know Korean to travel in Korea? English is part of an everyday Korean scene in Korea. If you go to like a metro station, then you can see obviously the Korean is the largest one. And sometimes it might have Chinese and Japanese scripts there too. But almost all cases like you'll see like English subtitles in public places. And in the Korean shopping scene, oh my God, I think this is pretty true around the world, but you'll see a lot of English. And Korean people, we get educated in English very early in elementary school or kindergarten these days, maybe even. But if you're interested, you can speak Korean with practice as non-native Korean. For example, this guy called Oliver Grant, he has over 1 million subscribers with the audience in Korea, and he is like your battlefield English teacher in a way that a lot of Korean kids study English with dry textbooks that don't really get them to become fluent conversationally in English. And he just shares a lot of different slangs and a lot of cultural mannerisms that to expect in America. In this video here, he's going to explain when to use what's up versus how are you.
What's up은 how are you랑 다르게 너 무슨 일 있어? 별일 없어? 이런 뜻입니다. 그러니까 대답도 괜찮아, 별일 없어 이렇게 해야겠죠?
He really impresses me because he looks like a Westerner, but he just sounds and have the mannerism like a Korean, and he's from Texas. And we have Jonathan Yumbi. He was featured in a very popular show in Korea because his family has a really interesting story where his dad was one of the prince of the Congo tribes, and was very well educated and did some intelligence work, but got involved in different political stuff and said the right thing at the wrong timing, and they had to like flee to Korea. So the show was tracing their story. Anyway, now the kids grew up in Korea for a few years and they're really fluent. And in this video, he's just saying that I sometimes get into a taxi car and I tell the taxi driver, please take me to destination A in Korean, and then they're always impressed. So like they won't leave me alone for the whole ride. So sometimes I pretend like I don't speak Korean.
아니 어떻게 한국말을 그렇게 잘해요? 이런 거야. 이거 그때 이제 시작을 해버리면 도착할 때까지 못 쉬어요. 맞아. 언제 왔어? 계속 어디서 살고 있어?
Yeah. So it's definitely possible.
현재 고3.
And then just a credit scene, I didn't produce any of these images and videos. I only remixed them. And that's all. Thank you very much. And feel free to Slack me in Korean. And if you have any questions, I can take it now.